Welcome back to the course on effective leadership. It's inevitable. You need to know how effective communication for leader works and learn how to improve your communication. Not only do you have to pass on a lot of instructions about what you want to happen, it's also a matter of setting the example as well. We will now understand about effective communication for leaders and learn the diagram of communication in the next class to get the theory behind everyday communication. Hit thumbs up if you want more content related to leadership. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel too. Hello there everyone! Communicating on a daily basis is already difficult. We get into a lot of problems and disagreements, partially because we don't express ourselves properly and because other people misunderstand us. The speaking part per se is easy. The difficult part is effective communication. That is, making our points fully understood. To think that a leader's role is essentially to communicate is in a way a stretch. There are studies that say that 60 to 70% of a leader's time are dedicated to activities that involve communication such as meetings, negotiations, dealing with employees, and the like. So, why do we make so many mistakes? There is a communication theory, which we will cover in a second, that expresses this struggle very well. And for leaders, this is even more crucial. Leaders have a lot more eyes on every word they use. Their weight is much greater. And on top of that, leaders are the role models to be followed. A leader's words resonate throughout the company far more than any other employees. They even resonate in the sense of being echoed by others. Anything you say is likely to be repeated to other people. So, although theoretically you are not to blame if a person misrepeats what you said, you will want to help that person repeat what you said correctly. Do you get it? So it's essential to learn how effective communication for leaders specifically, unless you and your team work in a room isolated from the outside world. Then that's okay, you can figure out how to work. So let's start this lesson by taking a look at some theories and literature before going any deeper on how to improve your communication. Let's draw the big picture here. According to a report by the Economist Intelligence Unit in 2018, poor communication can lead to low morale, non-fulfillment of goals, and even missing sales. A separate studies with 400 companies and 100,000 employees found that poor communication can cost companies an average of $74 million a year, while smaller companies can lose up to $420,000 annually. This is, of course, a survey conducted in the USA. People communicate differently, value different things, and it's essential that you know your style and the team members' values. In that same study by The Economist, the different communication styles are cited as the most frequent cause of bad communication. So, it's essential to study and understand how communication happens. In addition, understanding how to improve your communication will help to create a more open and psychologically safe environment that fosters team development. In the book, The Power of Communication, it's mentioned that more than a third of employees, including leaders, rarely know what is happening in their companies. I will go quickly over the simplest communication theories and then close it with the leader's effective communication theory. The theory of organizational communication. This field of study of organizational communication is very broad and there are many theories, as it has many aspects because it will vary by size of the organization. Perhaps the best known, academically speaking, is Max Weber, a German lawyer and economist considered one of the founders of sociology. Theory of organizations as bureaucratic systems was the first attempt to define organizational structures and model the communication that takes place within them back in 1964. Weberian theories believe that organizations have defined roles and responsibilities. So communication is hierarchical, structured and clear. There is no room for confusion from messages from above. Thus, for him, each person contributes in a definitive and unambiguous way. Then we see the evolution towards the organization control theory, proposed by Philip Tompkins and George Cheney, both PhD in communication. Tompkins was a consultant for NASA, and Cheney has 10 published books and more than 100 academic researches on the most diverse topics. It will be important to understand this before talking more about effective communication for leaders. For them, although communications have evolved from the bureaucratic model, it's impossible for them not to have at least some basic structure. There are 4 types of control that determine how organizations structure power: simple, technical, bureaucratic, and cultural. These forms denote a progression from the organization of simple models to a place of purpose where everyone knows what is expected with clear mission and vision. The point that the researchers wanted to propose is that the organization is fluid and it has stages. Finally, I want to introduce Stanley A. Dietz' theory, a university professor, writer, and PhD in communication. In his theory of managerialism, a school of thought that also draws this distinction with the organization as a personified entity with its own interests, different from its individuals separately. The highlight of his theory is that he goes beyond the fixed notions of companies and thinks about them taking into account people's aspiration and wants, and how power gravitates from one point to another. Thus, when we consider the next communication structure, we are able to see beyond what is literally exposed and judge the intention behind the messages, because this will certainly be taken into account by the listeners, if that makes sense. Now, the leadership communication framework. There is a visual model created by Deborah J. Barrett, a university professor and also PhD in communication. This is a model of 3 circles starting from the most inner part. The author makes it very clear that it's an spiraling because it doesn't serve to represent a hierarchy, but rather to represent the different needs as organizations become more complex. All basic communication skills are at the center and subsequent skills depend on them. The circles are core, managerial, and corporate communication. The framework, you can check it out on my blog in the description. In the core communication, leaders must have some basic communication skills. It is the foundation of effective communication for leaders. Included as components there are strategy, writing, and speaking. Success in the business world depends on mastering these 3 fundamental skills. In managerial communication, we have listening, cultural literacy, emotional intelligence, teams, mentoring, and meetings. They are the skills that involve managing people from one-on-one contact to interaction with groups and the rest of the company. Finally, we have the outermost circle, corporate communication. This is where the leaders need to expand his or her knowledge to manage the organization and to address the external community. This becomes even more complex with the involvement of different stakeholders. Communication continues to depend on a good strategy, but it becomes increasingly difficult. The role of the leader at this stage is to sort of be a spokesperson for the company. Cool, this was a quick overview of the literature. Okay, now let's go to practice. So, did it make sense? In the next lesson, we'll check out my communication structure, which summarizes all of this concept, makes it easier for one to understand how to better communicate with each other. How about that? Make sure you are subscribed to my channel to follow the lessons, like this content if you think it has helped you, and share it with your colleagues and coworkers. Always look both ways. See you in the future.